Good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, everyone. We ask that you will go on and get you guys something to eat and drink. We will be getting started momentarily. One of our speakers is en route, and we want to give him a chance. Voice here today, but continue to mix and mingle, and we will be getting started, let's say in 5 minutes, okay? So go on and get you something to eat. We do have refreshments back there. Get you something to drink. And also start thinking about questions that you might want to ask. We will be talking tonight, again, about the city's budget. And so I'm quite sure you are here, you've been thinking about it. So think about those questions that you would like to ask. When we have the question and answer session, we're going to ask that you line up coming this way around the TV. So that is how we will do our question and answer session. And you all will be able to come to this podium and ask your questions. And our panelists, those who are responsible for whatever question that you ask, will answer it to the best of their abilities, okay? So give us 5 more minutes, and we will be getting started shortly.
Why you give me a lemon? I like those stuff, not too
meeting, and all of a sudden we hear him laughing. No, thank you.
Love it? Yeah.
Connected to that password. So I'm not sure what's going on.
You said this straight. You're very articulate. I said, well, with a media come up, jumping to the media, where and I said,
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm not sure it's working.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's better.
That's better? All right, great. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the People's State of the City Address. We will begin our program with opening remarks from our hosts, the Communities Workers of America. We are actually in their Union Hall, and I'm going to bring up Ms. Carolyn Mann. Carolyn is a board member of Jobs with Justice of East Tennessee, and she's also a member of United Campus Workers. Let's welcome Ms. Carolyn Mann to the
Thank you, everybody. My name is Caroline Mann, and as Lady said, I am a member of the United Campus Workers. I work at University of Tennessee on Knoxville campus. Welcome to our Union Hall. Let me give you a couple of housekeeping tips before we get going for the evening. If you need the restrooms, they're down this hall to my right. Please check out the organizations who are tabling in the back: Indivisible East Tennessee, Democratic Socialists of America, PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, is there as well, and SACA. So please visit our tablers. If you've not signed in when you came in, please do take a moment to do that as well. And also help yourself, please, to food and drinks. So again, welcome to the Union Hall. Thank you for coming. Barbara. Restroom? Yes, restrooms down the hall to my right. All right. Again, I'm so thrilled to see everybody here. This is a beautiful action of solidarity among organizations and folks from the city of Knoxville. It warms my heart to see everybody here. I hope we can keep this relationship strong, growing, make it even stronger, because I think we have a lot of work to do. And when we support each other in solidarity, we can only get better. All right. Briefly about the union. UCW is a statewide organization of higher education employees. We are 2,200 or so statewide, with more than 1,000 members here in Knoxville. Recently, we've come off a huge victory in 2021 when the custodian-led campaign for $15 an hour wages on campus in Knoxville was successful. So we're very proud of that. We have another campaign underway right now for $20 an hour wages and $25 an hour by the year 2025. I believe everyone deserves to work for a thriving wage. Union members are also busy in the community, in the city, and the county, supporting the Knox County School custodians in their campaign for $15 an hour as well. So we've got members in the union actively organizing with that group. We've got members of the union organizing in solidarity with other retail and restaurant organizations in the city that you've probably heard of, McKay's, Starbucks. So we stand in solidarity with everybody who's working for a thriving wage. Some of the other efforts we undertake in the city are endorsing candidates and following campaigns. So we pay special attention to city council and city mayor races. And we've recently sent out a survey asking for candidates to respond. How would they support unions? How do they support workers? How do they propose to work for a thriving wage in the city of Knoxville? So we look forward to releasing endorsements when we get satisfactory candidate answers back. So that being said, I want to welcome you all again. We've got so much information to give out tonight. I look forward to hearing it from all of the panelists, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Caroline, for welcoming us to this great occasion on tonight. I am Tierra Lady Wilson, your MC for this evening. I am a proud community elder advocating in the areas of mental health awareness and housing injustices. Most recently, I expanded my fight to shine the light on food apartheid, and I'm serving as the community engagement chair for Rooted East Knoxville Collective. Well, enough about me. Thank you. I have been charged to stand here today to help shine the light by letting the community voices be heard. And we're going to talk about the priorities of the city of Knoxville, but most importantly, our city budget. So let's talk money. Specifically, the city of Knoxville budget. Our mayor's office drafts the city budget with input from city departments. Now, I want to make light that the city budget is on our City of Knoxville website. It is a 257-page document. Let me say that again. It is a 257-page document that our city council members have roughly 2.5 weeks to look over after the first presentation, which was on last week, that the mayor did for her mayoral city address, right? And so on last night, that was the first draft that was voted upon. And so what I'm going to tell you right now is the calendar that the budget goes through. So on April 26th of 2023, the mayor released a proposal. Then on yesterday, the city council has their first reading, and they're supposed to vote upon that. Now, what's also going to happen is on May the 9th, a legislative budget hearing and public hearing is supposed to happen. On May the 11th, Knox County Planning Commission will also have a hearing on CIP. And then May 16th, then there's supposed to be a city county second reading and proposal of the budget and tax ordinances. It is expected, which it probably should be, moved to May 30th. You guys see how close these dates are for our councilmen and women to have to look over a 257-page document, which is the operation of our city. One of the things that I want to also point out is that there are 15 city departments. I'm going to read them off. Administration, which is our mayor's department. We have finance, information systems, housing and neighborhood development. Number 5 is public service. Then we have engineering. Number 7 is inspections. 8 is recreation. Number 9 is mass transportation. Then there is the law department, police department, fire department, our legislative department. Number 14 is civil services, and then 15th department is human resources. Now that's just the city departments. There's also non-departmental cities that play a part of our budget. Now with the city departments, there is getting ready to be a balanced budget of $211,380,030. That is just going to be the budget for those departmentals. Now we have non-departmentals that play a part in the budget. Number 1 is city elections. Number 2 is Knoxville Partnership. Number 3 is the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And then Knoxville Zoological Park, agency grants, waterfronts, Community Action Committee, which is CAC, and then other departmental that is in the city, and then transfers. Those non-departmental's budget that is supposed to be balanced comes to $92,661,290. So we have a grand total budget for the city of $304,041,320. And this budget must be balanced. So I want to say that again last week, our Mayor Kincannon proposed the budget. And in the mayor's address, she announced some structural changes. It is very important that I tell you about these structural changes because under these structural changes, the community empowerment and the Office of Community Safety merges. Now, in her state of the city, she says that they will be a department. That is untrue. I've already read to you all the 15 departments for the city. What's ultimately getting ready to happen with the community empowerment and the community safety, they will merge under the leadership of Miss LaKenya Middlebrook. And under her leadership, what's also going to happen is that other offices such as the Police Advisory and Review Committee, PARC, the Sustainability Office, the Equal Opportunity Employment Officer, and also our Title V coordinator will no longer exist, okay? And so the reason why this is important to bring up is that office, not department, is now going up under administration. What that means is this department that primarily deals with a lot of issues in poor and minority communities is now up under the auspice of our mayor in that administration department.
Charles.
Why is this important? Our city council members and the city staff will have time to digest the budget and consider possible amendments. It is important to note that the city council is limited in the ways that it can amend a budget. A council member could not pose a line item change for specific sections of the budget. Let me break it down a little bit better. So because empowerment and safety are a office under administration, city council members cannot say, hey, we want money from, let's say, another line item in administration to go specifically to that office. Now, had these two offices stayed under the department that they were once housed under, which was housing and neighborhood development, then our council members could say, we want money from police department to go to the housing and neighborhood development for these line items. So you see how the most vulnerable offices they aren't vulnerable, but they protect the most vulnerable people is now being put in a place where, think about it, if somebody says, hey, let's put more money in the mayor's office, how does that sound? People are not going to really like the sound of that, especially if they have not read the 257-page document and not understand that now these two offices are going to be needing some money out of some of these other line items. So I just want to bring that up to you all today. And I am so happy to have people talk more specifically about different areas that matter to us as a community. Are you ready, brother? The first thing that we're going to talk about is race. Now, in the mayor's address last week, it's ironic that in her speech, she does mention race kind of indirectly when she brings up the first black mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee, Mayor Dan Brown. You say, how is this race? Well, let's talk about it. How how did Mayor Brown become our mayor? We have not in Knoxville, Tennessee in 195 years ever elected a black mayor. Let me say that again.
Become governor. Never.
Never elected a black mayor. So as much as I am proud to be able to call Mr. Dan Brown Mayor Dan Brown, he didn't even serve for a whole year. So that is something that we cannot give false praise and accolades for, because never in 195 years has Knoxville, Tennessee ever elected a black mayor. So she opened up the door for race, and that is what we are going to talk about as our first topic on this evening. We have Brother Zimbabwe Matub. I'm sorry for saying your last name wrong. Brother Zimbabwe will come and grace us and talk about race on this evening.
The most important issue relative to politics, economic, and all social dimensions in Knoxville, the county of Knox, is race as it pertains to African Americans. Because I think the greatest manifestation in North America of what can happen to a people whose political system has shown indifference can be seen in Knoxville. We, as an African American element in Knoxville, has virtually disappeared.
That's right.
Now, this does not mean that you would never see a black person walking the street in some sections of the city, because you will. If you look hard enough, you may find a Cherokee walking the street. But that is not indicative of any political or economic status worthy of praising about the Cherokee.
That's right.
I don't praise the Cherokee because the Cherokee was one of those civilized tribes that also enslaved black people. But I'm saying even after they sought accolades by going along with that system of slavery, their territory too was taken, and they took the long march. The worst thing that has happened to black people in the city of Knoxville since slavery was urban renewal. Urban renewal is second to slavery. Nothing else can compare. Upon its conception, urban renewal was supposed to replace deteriorating housing with government subsidized housing to get citizens of this country surrounded with decent dwellings. And when you read the original versions of urban renewal, you'll receive it well. That's a good idea. That's positive. But as it worked itself, as the first drafts worked itself in the Congress to the various cities, it has been modified in such a degree. It had been modified in such a degree, instead of it rescuing black folk, it devastated them. Because bankers and local politicians so changed it that it became almost unsupervised under the supervision of local politicians. And they said that these local politicians could use urban renewal in a way that they thought would best enhance their cities, their counties. And that is exactly what we have witnessed. Urban renewal completely remove the potential economic prosperity of African Americans, and the little economic viability that we did have was completely taken away.
That's right.
We look at Mechanicsville. We had around 113 businesses in Mechanicsville. There are now 2 mom and pop businesses in Mechanicsville. In East Knoxville, there's virtually, time's up. One, this is a task. Let me say this with 1 minute. We should give highest priority to rescuing and restoring status to the African American community in Knoxville.
What's left anyways?
We should return the property that the University of Tennessee has on the corner of College Street and University to the African American community. And we should either severely modify the development of the baseball stadium
That's right.
to a degree
That's right.
that African Americans can have some of that property in order to reestablish their businesses.
That's right.
Though, or as citizens, we should organize to either severely retard or to stop the progress of that enterprise.
That's right.
Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing. You know the rest?
Without a demand.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will.
Based upon what Brother Zimbabwe said, it makes me want to pull out the transcript from the mayor's last week's speech. Because one of the things that I remember her saying as I was studying for tonight that really kind of bothered me was the fact that the African American Equality Restoration Task Force, you know, they had promised millions of dollars for that task force, right? In order to restore what was removed because of renewal. They promised millions of dollars, right? In order to replace or give back what was removed from renewal. Well, check this out because it's on the city's website. You can read it for yourself. Because I was really baffled when she said this budget also proposes additional funds to support the work of the African American Equality Restoration Task Force as they seek transformative grants. Did you hear that? Seek grants to address the harms of urban renewal. So why is it that our city is going to give money to help a task force give grants instead of just giving them the money?
That part.
Exactly.
Let me say it again. Why is it that our city's mayor is only willing to give money to help because they just hired a new individual, and I'm proud of her to have that job. But why is it that our city is not willing to give actual money, the millions that they said, but only give funding to help her find grants, to give back what they took? Doesn't make any sense to me. Well, let's move on to our next topic, which is education. Now, I know that you may be thinking, why are we talking about education when it's Knox County education system? I'll snooze that, okay? Hold on. Y'all, I'm sorry. All right, reason. All right, so the reason why we're gonna talk about education, because sometimes people just don't know what they don't know. But the city of Knoxville gives money to Knox County for education. Now let's piggyback on race. There is an all-time high disproportion of discipline that is happening to black and brown children within Knox County school system, and our city pays for it. So who I'm going to bring up to the mic is Mr. Lance McCold. He is our part of our Knox County Education Coalition since its inception in 2018, and more specifically, he is the Education Community Chair for the NAACP. Please welcome to talk about education, Mr. McCold.
Thank you. I guess if you saw the agenda, that you probably saw that Sam Brown was supposed to be speaking. Who's the president of the NAACP, and obviously I'm not Sam. He was called away by some needs of his congregation. So yeah, man, I got the task to speak to you about 45 minutes ago, so I'm going to wing it a little bit. Man, there's so many things that I'm going to take down. So let's start with racism. Racism is a problem, absolutely. The disparities in discipline in Knox County schools has been around forever. The disciplines, basically black kids get disciplined 3 times or so more severely than white kids. And of course the fall off, it also hits the poor kids regardless of color, but the black kids are a disproportionately large proportion of the poor kids. And also kids with educational disabilities, they get whacked pretty hard. We saw the school board, we saw racism on the school board in the last couple meetings by people who don't really understand what racism is. They think that racism means hostility to people who've got a different skin color. But what we saw was an attitude of, well, we know better. Last week, the board met to talk about this charter school that was proposed, and the 5 members who live in the periphery of the county that actually don't represent the area where most of the African Americans, most of the poor people in Knox County live, they said, we need to give those people choice. On Monday, we had a discussion about a different issue. We had a discussion of the Freedom School. They have an MOU that they do, and 2 of the people who spoke up said, you know, those people are promoting an agenda. Part of the agenda includes the 1619 Project. We don't want to be affiliated with that. So, but then other people said, well, wait a minute, I thought we were all about choice. Well, parental choice, what's wrong with parental choice? Well, yeah, well, of course, you know, I guess it means we have choice as long as you choose what we want you to choose. I think that's what choice means. So, back to the budget. The Knox County Schools is funded by an agreement that gets the county, the city, and Farragut tax dollars, and then it's distributed by the administration. So the thing I would say about the city budget is, you know, I don't think there's a complaint about how they contribute to the county schools, because they're countywide. But the problem is, the thing everybody knows who pays attention, what does well, the kids who do well in school are the kids who come from prosperous families. The kids who come from low-income family, those are the ones who struggle. They usually have the trauma that they bring to school. They have the stresses that they bring to school from their families. Poverty is the driver of low educational performance. And so there's a big nationwide racist, one of those sneaky racist kind of things that says, oh, look at test scores. Test scores are bad. Test scores are bad at Austin East. The test scores are bad at Vine. You know, you name it. Well, the test scores are bad because of poverty. So what the city of Knoxville needs to do is to focus on eliminating poverty in their city.
That's it.
That is solve all the educational problems. And let's make sure that they do it the right way by lifting up the people who live there, not by bringing in white people to gentrify. But that's what has to happen. The poverty is the problem with education. And the city of Knoxville, as most of the poor people, they need to be focusing on lifting up the poor people. And that's my advice to you. And one last thing I want to say, because I'm almost out of time, but one of the things we're thinking about in terms of education budgets, our budget was just approved for the Knox County Schools a week ago, is that we need to be making our demands for what the budget looks like in the fall.
That's right.
We are too damn late doing it now. This is, you know, the vote is just about to go over the falls. You know, we need to be way back up there. We need to have budget proposals and demands in October, I don't know, September. We need to be we need to do that for the schools. I think that might be a good strategy for people who are focused on city budget. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad that Lance brought up poverty. It is my job to keep bringing up the things that were said last week. I'm glad I did my homework. Because our mayor said, much of Knoxville is thriving. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that since 2017, incomes are up and fewer families are living in poverty, even among our most at-risk communities.
Lies.
Somebody throw out the stat about how many percentage of Knoxville is in poverty,
47.
and how many of that is black.
47.
So 47% of I think she said only 13%. I think of Knoxville, I think that's what she was trying to say. That only 13% of our total population is in poverty. But when we take a closer look, as Constance said, of that 13%, 47% are black and brown. So let me read what she said again. Fewer families are living in poverty, even amongst our most at-risk communities. I don't think that's what those individuals who are struggling that are in the 47% would be saying, right? And she went on to say, still many people's incomes, after saying this, are not keeping pace with the rise of cost of living. So she said what she said, right? And then she turns around and says that incomes are not keeping pace with the rising cost of living.
Contradiction.
Which is why we're now getting ready to talk about housing. Early in her speech, she said that since 2020, the city has helped thousands of more families have a safe and affordable place to live. What was going on in 2020, y'all?
Pandemic.
So Knoxville didn't do nothing. The federal government did. With the COVID money. Come on now, let's call a thing, as Brother Calvin would say.
That's right. That's right.
She said since 2020, the city has helped thousands more families have a safe and affordable place to live. But our housing advocates can say differently because during the pandemic, that was when more people were evicted by KCDC.
Don't KD cut up lights.
So I am getting ready to bring up to talk about housing and her own lived experience. Miss Brianna Holloway. She is a proud mother of 3 girls and 2 boys. But not only that, she is also a business owner. She told me to let you guys know is everything vintage in her shop. So you can get all things vintage. I'm gonna need for you guys to go and support her, because after you hear her story, you will understand why it is so important for us not to just look at the cover, but learn how to read in between the pages of a book. And she's going to tell you her heart-wrenching story about how she has been fighting not our public housing authority, but a private landlord. Let's welcome Miss Brianna Holloway.
Thank you all for having me up here. Before I get into my story, I just want to let you all know that there will be a petition for right to cancel being passed around. Lilith has it back there at the table. You'll probably be jumping in front of each other in line to sign this petition once I tell you, you know, what I've been dealing with for more than the past year and a half. So, I've got some notes here from some people. I just want to read some things out for this again before I go into my story. So last year, 2022, every day almost 4 Knox County families were served with eviction warrants. My family was one of those 4. We were actually served with, I believe, 4 or 5 detainer warrants last year from the same property owner from the same house, all while they were in possession of that same COVID money Ms. Tierra was talking about from the federal government. The system that was put in place to help families like mine failed me and my 5 children.
That's right.
On average, 83% of landlords are represented by an attorney nationally in eviction cases, while only 3% of tenants are represented. I would fall in that 3%. Initially, Legal Aid of East Tennessee was appointed by the Knox County's Knox Housing Assistance Program to help me once these troubles started with my landlord over these COVID rent funds. Along the way, Legal Aid of East Tennessee decided that they had done enough for me and abandoned me in my case, left me to fight on my own. I know many that have seen my story on the news in the past. In January, after that fatal drag racing wreck happened and displaced me and my children 2 weeks after we were forced from our home that we had been in for over 7.5 years. I'm sorry, y'all lost my train of thought real quick. Okay. Yes, Legal Aid left me hanging. And like I was saying, I know people have said in those comments on the news stories, they think I'm a statistic. All they see is that I'm a black woman, I'm poor, and I have a handful of kids. They've even said, well, why is she volunteering and so active in her community instead of working? I've worked my entire adult life. I've even worked for the state of Tennessee and the city of Knoxville. And one of the reasons that I became an entrepreneur and a business owner is because I knew that me and my family could not survive on the poverty wages that I was being paid.
That's right.
I'm not just a poor black woman with the whole tribe of kids. I'm an educated woman. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Tennessee. I also have a master's degree, and I also studied for my JD and my PhD, though I did not finish on the doctorate level. There's nothing lazy about me at all. And yet here I am serving as the new face of homelessness. I'm not mentally ill. I am not an addict, for lack of a better term. Again, I'm not lazy. I pay my bills. I've been out on my own with a child since I was 19 years old, working and going to school, pulling 12 to 16 hours a semester. I had both of my oldest two children while I was at UT. And still managed to graduate in 4.5 years while working with those two children I was raising by myself. I am more than and this is where I am. And I cannot provide the basic human needs for myself and my children. Once legal aid left me hanging by myself, I was left to fight another detainer warrant. I've been to court 4 times representing myself. And I said all that I said, kind of giving a resume rundown, is because I'm an articulate woman, I'm an intelligent woman, and I know how to advocate for myself.
That's right.
This situation has mentally and physically drained me. I mean, I'm sitting up here looking like Florida Evans mixed with Sophia from The Color Purple right now. It is taking its toll on me. So if it has worn me down this much, I cannot imagine someone without the intellect and the strength that I have. They would never have reached to this point to continue fighting the way that I have. And that is why we have these numbers right here, because these landlords in this court system and our local government system know exactly who to prey on and who to let loose. But they had no idea who I was. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
That's right.
So on here it says, guaranteeing legal counsel saves money through decreased spending on houseless services and public health spending. Eviction often leads to homelessness, and both have profoundly negative effects on children and families. For these reasons, we are asking that the City of Knoxville and Knox County act to ensure that every tenant facing eviction has access to legal counsel. So as I mentioned before, my prior landlord took out 5 illegal detainer warrants on me, and I'm still fighting the last one that was taken out on me on appeal right now. They're trying to stick me with an over $20,000 remodeling bill, trying to force me to pay for things that were not even in the house and things that they fixed or remodeled once we were out of the home. I was hit with a $15,000 judgment in court, trying to fight this by myself. People often ask too, well, are you applying here? Are you applying there? Have you reached out to these social services for help? Absolutely, I'm proactive. I know how to advocate for myself. I've worked in social services. I know what I'm doing, but the truth of the matter is these agencies are not helping.
That's right.
CAC had a hotel program, and I'm sorry, I know I'm over my limit. I'm gonna end it soon. CAC had a hotel program for certain homeless families that was funded through the federal government and then funneled down through Knox County. That program ended March 31st. So all the families that were in that hotel program were just given the boot and told, well, you know, figure it out, go to a shelter, there's nothing else we can do. Me and my children were one of those families. My school counselor, one of my kids' school counselors was able to find a private donor to help us for the past month. But that money has been exhausted. So as of last Friday, me and my kids have spent 3 nights in a hotel and 2 nights in our car. Because these hotels just cost too much. I can't find housing. I have several detainer warrants on my public record for where my prior landlord attempted to illegally evict me so many times. These detainer warrants are not able to be removed from your public record. So if I'm going to apply for housing, even with the voucher that it took CAC and KCDC 8 weeks to give me after that car wreck, when these property managers and landlords go to pull my public record and they see these illegal detainer warrants, they're going to tell me a hard hell no.
Right.
So at this point, I'm looking at being homeless indefinitely.
Yeah.
I am really at my wit's end on what to do from this point on. And I don't know if the situation would be different if Knox County's KHA workers had not dropped the ball and turned their backs on me along with legal aid. But we're here now, and something has got to change. It's not for my family, but for all of the families that are being negatively affected by this housing crisis and all of these illegal evictions as well. Thank you all.
She speaks no lies. I've been through the same predicament with our public housing authority. And so we've got to make sure that City of Knoxville does what it needs to do to eliminate the housing and homeless situation. Next, we are going on your agenda. As you can see, we were supposed to have Miss Vivian Scheidt, who is going to talk about transportation. Unfortunately, she is not able to be here. She had a family medical emergency. But I'm going to spell her name for you and tell you her organizations, because if you look her up on Facebook, you will definitely be able to see what she would talk about tonight through her lives and all of the advocacy that she's doing for those who are in need and not being thought about by our CAT, our public transportation organization. Again, her name is Vivian Scheidt. That is V-I-V-I-A-N, capital S-H-I-P-E, and she is the founder of Voice for the Voiceless. Next on our agenda, we are going to bring up Kent Minnow. He is going to speak about environment. Kent worked 10 years in Los Angeles on the Sierras Club Beyond Coal campaign. After getting LA off coal, he joined the LA County Electric Bus Coalition and got LA Metro to transition to electric buses by 2030. So let me just say that we've definitely got the right man to come to the mic to talk about environment. And while Kent has been here in Knoxville, Tennessee, he has organized an EV event in East Tennessee with Seed and works with the Drive Electric Tennessee. He is on the executive committee for the Sierras Club Harvey Bloom Group and serves as the group's political chair. Let us welcome to the mic Kent Minnow.
Ooh, thanks, lady. Well, what I have to say tonight will take about 45 minutes. But Mickey's here timing me, so I'll only speak for 5, but if you want to hear the rest, just stop me in the parking lot afterward. The environmental state of our city. So let's look at the city from a planet lover's point of view. Do we have an environmentally responsible city government? Well, we got a progressive mayor, progressive city council, don't we? Well, look at the things they've done for the environment. Mayor Kincannon listed them in her State of the City address. $4 million for parks and greenways, on track to reduce the city's carbon emissions 50% by 2030, increase the number of EV charging stations, on track to electrify the CAT bus system by 2030, just like LA. Develop the city's first urban forest master plan with Trees Knoxville, helped create Knoxville's first community solar project with KUB. Those are not lightweight accomplishments. India deserves our gratitude and applause. Now, most of the city's claims to be a climate leader come from goals set in 2019 to reduce emissions from municipal operations 50% by 2030. Now, technically, we're close to meeting that goal, but The goal is only for city operations, not for community-wide emissions. The city has a more distant goal of reducing those emissions, 80% by 2050, but community-wide emissions are on the rise and don't look like they're coming down soon. The more honest message is we're going in the wrong direction.
That's right.
Now, Knoxville and other cities face a similar reality. Emissions from buildings are going down slowly. Emissions from utility power generation are going down. Transportation emissions, on the other hand, are going up sharply. The more honest message, lost myself here. The more honest message is that we're going in the wrong direction. Knoxville and other cities, gas and diesel cars and trucks are the problem. Without a serious plan to reduce transportation emissions, our climate goals are a form of denial. Thanks, Nikki. We're told progress is being made while the opposite is true. India can claim progress, but without the backbone to stand up to the concentrated wealth of TVA and the fossil fuel industry, the progress is illusory. Neither the mayor nor the city council lifted a finger to push back on TVA's move to replace coal-fired power with polluting gas plants. Nashville, in contrast, energetically opposed TVA. With the mayor of the Nashville City Council, and a unanimous vote by the NES Board of Commissioners, all urging TVA not to replace coal with gas, but with renewables and storage, which are also cheaper. They were echoing a letter to TVA's CEO Jeffrey Lyash from the House Energy and Commerce Committee with the same message. Our state's capital, our government in Washington, were calling on TVA to change course. When the Sierra Club and other allies called Knoxville's leaders to stand up and take action, they didn't respond. We were all delighted when Mayor Kincannon kept a campaign promise to form the Mayor's Climate Council. But the composition of the council belied that promise. Of the 12 members, only 3 were genuine environmentalists with serious knowledge about the threats to our climate. The majority were chosen from real estate companies, the Chamber of Commerce, the financial services industry, and utilities. The blunt fact is that we have to stop burning fossil fuels altogether. If we don't, we won't be able to keep the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Any administration that doesn't face up to it is not really leading us. So there's a lot more to be done. Examples abound. California will ban diesel and gas freight trucks in its ports after 2035. 76 cities around the country have enacted bans on gas hookups in new construction. New York's about to pass a ban statewide. Bans have been so successful. What's that?
They passed it.
Yeah, thank you. They passed it. Bans have been so successful that many Republican-led states have moved preemptively to quash them, like ours. There's a serious fight about natural gas dependency going on in our country, and leaders in Knoxville remain silent. The Kincannon administration is happy to have a climate agenda as long as it's politically convenient. Environmentalists want to support India's administration, and she's directly helped us save a mature tree canopy in the cradle of Country Music Park. Serious ecological thinking is going on in the planning of the urban forest tree canopy. We're grateful, but our assessment of the state of the city cannot avoid the administration's complete lack of courage when it comes to taking stands on more difficult issues like the transition off fossil fuels. To be an environmentalist, you have to be brave, and it's too late for business as usual.
That's right.
One more brief thing, because my friend Vivian Scheich was mentioned, and she called me about the school board meeting tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. Protect Freedom Schools. There's a vote on the MOU with Freedom Schools. The Sierra Club is sending a message to the school board members about it. It's a thing I think we can win, but it helps to be there. Go to the school board meeting tomorrow night at 5. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kent, for bringing us aware on environmental issues. You know, there's cause and effect. We have been discussing on these other points, basically, causes. And now we're going to talk about when our city doesn't do what it needs to do in the areas of race, education, housing, transportation, environment, and poverty or economics. Then we are dealt with the causes of it. And so it is my honor to bring up Miss Terry Walker Smith. Terry is the proud mother of 4 sons, and she has 13 grandchildren from those 4 sons of hers. She is the founder of Mothers of Mission Survivors. Also a proud advocate speaking on gun violence through her position as the city gun violence leader for Moms Demand Action, which allows her access to our mayor monthly, talking about gun violence and what needs to be done. So we very much hope that our mayor is listening with a good ear to Miss Walker Smith. And now it's time for us to listen to her personal story.
Good evening, everybody, and I would like to say I'm also a member of Turn Up Knox. Proud to say I'm a member of Turn Up Knox. And again, my name is Terry Walker Smith, and I'm not here to, come against anyone because everybody has their own opinions, and that's fine. But I am an advocate in the city, and I will share my story and the help that I've gotten from the city. Like I said, I'm a mother of 4 sons. 2 of my sons were murdered here in Knoxville. And the help that I have gotten, was not from the community. So that's why I became an advocate with Moms Demand Action. We go to Nashville to change laws within the legislature. And And it's very emotional and very personal. Like I said, I don't come against anyone because that's the problem now. It says, united we stand, divided we fall. And what I see is we are so divided. That's why we're falling. And that's why I chose to advocate on behalf of my son that was murdered and my other son that was murdered. My first son was killed in 2007. Friday the 13th, 2007, and then almost 2 years later, my second son was gunned down in Western Heights in Knoxville. And so I don't have a 501c3. I do not have that. I am funded by Moms Demand Action and India Kincannon, which every year I do a wreath event for mothers that have lost their children, because we all want to come out and support in the beginning, do this, do that, but then you forget about the family when they have to go to court, when they have to go through a birthday, anniversary, whatever they may go through. Who's there? Who's there to pick up the pieces? So I was asked to come here to share my story, and the group that I created was Mothers of Mission Survivors, to support these mothers through their journey of grief, to cope, heal, and rebuild their life after the death of their child. And it's very devastating that we have to go through this when others go on with their lives. We are still trying to put the pieces together. And another thing, who's safe in Knoxville? Who is safe in these other cities? So like I said, I don't come against anybody. And like I said, I am a proud advocate in Knoxville, Tennessee, on my son's behalf. Deontay D. Freeman, Christopher Lynn McBath, and I know there are issues. I do know I don't go past that, but I can only speak on what I've experienced and the help that I got. So that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Terry, for doing the work that you have done. I remember the first time I saw her on Capitol Hill, not using her pain to just be sorrowful and to wallow in it, but actually turning her pain into purpose. And so let's give her another round of applause, because it's mothers like her who have lost their children who are making a difference on Capitol Hill, not just in our city. Last week, our mayor said that public safety is job number 1. These are not my words. I am reading it straight from the transcript. She also said that this past year I hired a new police chief, Paul Noel.
Liar.
And we've added more officers to the beat patrol
Killers.
and solved more cases.
Lies.
We're making sure we have the right people, policies, and training to make the Knoxville Police Department the most, listen to this, community-focused, trusted, and effective police department in the country. And the good news, crime is going down.
Lies.
So it's obvious that our next topic is policing. Coming to the mic will be Taylor Gibbons. Taylor is a Tyler, my bad, I'm sorry. Tyler Gibbons is a citizen journalist and police accountability advocate. Because of him, he was able to capture the infamous video of our former city council candidate and goes up Mark.
Just say Z, I love it.
Z. I was trying to be all formal with it because that's how he wrote it. Our former candidate, Z, was arrested by Knox County Sheriff in a public meeting talking about the hiring of our new chief. And because of this video, guess what? An internal affairs investigation was brought upon because of the incident that was captured by Tyler. You know how you get something in your brain and then it just sticks. So Tyler, please tell us about the state of policing in Knoxville.
Thank you very much. I'm Tyler Gibbons, and I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the state of policing here in Knoxville. So Chief Noel has claimed that the recent decrease in violent crime in Knoxville, and our mayor also has claimed that the recent decrease in violent crime in Knoxville is due to his organizational changes as chief. However, the evidence of this claim is thin. During the pandemic, violent crime spiked across the U.S., and Knoxville was no exception. This last year marked the beginning of a return to pre-pandemic trends, which aligns well with what sociologists told us would happen during that crisis. Our local, state, and federal governments allowed a health crisis to become an economic crisis for working class people. And that economic crisis drove up crime. Poverty is always the source of these problems. So now that that crisis is relaxing and the economy is doing a little bit better, violent crime is predictably down, not just in Knoxville, but across the nation. Now, this trend is no consolation for those that are harmed by the continuing epidemic of gun violence that has overwhelmingly impacted minority youth in this city, and obviously in Nashville recently as well. So over the past couple of years, KPD has implemented a violence interruption program and a mental health co-response unit, but unfortunately neither of these programs follow nationally recognized best practices.
That's right.
Both involve police officers as first responders rather than community or health provider-led approaches.
That's right.
Police officers are trained to dominate and control situations. Other cities have had great success by removing officers from situations that do best with a more delicate touch. Yet our police budget continues to swell. In 2019, the police operating budget was $59 million. In just 4 years, that budget has grown to $77 million, an increase of 30%. But our number of sworn officers, or officers on duty, has actually not increased. It was 379 back in 2019, and they say around 370 now. So it's not much of a change, if any at all. This budget also does not include the cost of legal counsel and settlements to defend officers from misconduct claims. In 2022, KPD settled 2 lawsuits, awarding the state maximum of $300,000 to the family of Mauricio Luna, who was killed when 3 officers sped down Kingston Pike without lights and sirens. Trinity Clark last year was also awarded $150,000 for her assault and battery by an officer. Officers Cody Klingman and Joseph Roberts were allowed to resign rather than be terminated, and they are currently eligible for hire at any other police department. And the training that Knoxville taxpayers that we paid for will be seen as an asset by other police departments. Lawsuits are still pending in the deaths of Anthony Thompson Jr. and Lisa Edwards.
That's right. That's right.
Now, the city says they've struggled with an officer shortage for years, and recruitment and retention have been difficult. To combat this issue, the department invested in a social media marketing campaign, promotional vehicles, and aggressive recruitment at public events. None of this has worked, because the real issue in our police department is cultural.
That's right.
And cultural change is what is needed to make more good people want to be police officers. Accusations of racism and sexism have plagued the department, with multiple senior leaders retiring early after investigations into misconduct.
That's right.
And Chief Noel has done little to change this culture.
That's right.
His new command staff is entirely white, though Knoxville is 25% non-white, and all of these promotions were internal. One newly promoted deputy chief reviewed the assault of Trinity Clark and took no disciplinary action against Officer Roberts. Until this culture of intolerance and harassment is corrected, recruiting and retaining good officers will remain difficult. The staffing shortage has also led to massive amounts of overtime for existing officers. While many officers appreciate the extra income of overtime work, there are serious performance issues for overworked officers. Studies from other departments have shown that longer shifts and overtime lead to an increase in use of force incidents, ethics violations, and citizens' complaints. Overtasked officers are not able to do their job properly, and excessive officer overtime directly harms the public. So what can we do? Other cities have had great success with moving the responsibility for responding to crises to resources that better match the needs.
That's right.
Instead of continuing to increase our investment in recruiting, we can invest in community-based organizations that allow our police to focus on the jobs that we want them to focus on,
Right.
which is responding to crimes
Right.
and catching perpetrators.
Right.
Community outreach programs and mental health responses are better performed by unarmed professionals, and cities that have implemented such programs have seen better outcomes with lower costs than traditional policing. Thank you.
We thank Tyler for the setup for our next individuals who will be coming to the podium. We have Brittany Bonner and Maura Connolly. These individuals are responsible for HEART, which is Healing East Tennessee Alternative Response Team. You ready? Y'all gonna sit there, or are you coming up here?
We didn't know there was an option. We'll see.
It's always one, right?
Hey, okay, I'm just gonna stand because I'm shorter than Brittany, who is a wonderfully tall person. Yeah. So Tyler was very generous to set up our presentation. I also want to just pause and say I'm a proud card-carrying member of United Campus Workers. We are here with a group that has been advocating in the city of Knoxville for 3 years to provide an alternative response team. Tyler provided a great job of the context for why such a thing is necessary. And I'm going to explain what an alternative response team is, how they work, and what it's not. An alternative response team is just that. It's an alternative to a police response to a particular call in the city. Right now, when you call E911, your options are police, fire, and ambulance, right? We want a fourth option to have a non-police, behavioral health-centered response to a situation in the city. Cities across the country have done this with benefits in financial accountability to taxpayers, but most importantly, compassionate, appropriate care to community members without police involvement or police appearing on a scene and then escalating a situation that does not need to be escalated.
That's right.
So these are teams of 2 people, usually a behavioral health specialist and a medic or a nurse. And then when a call comes into E911, those operators are trained, right? They know which call needs to go to fire, which goes to the ambulance. Likewise, they get training, so they know which call needs to go out to the alternative response team. Then that pair of people go to the situation. Okay, what kind of calls are we talking about? We're talking about maybe suicidal ideation, welfare checks, people who might be under the influence, maybe walking into the street, a danger to themselves, a danger to others, people who are having a mental health crisis, people who maybe are asleep on the street, a safety issue for themselves and for others who need to go up and down the street. These are the sorts of calls. And the interesting thing is, and I think Tyler can back us up because I know we've looked at the same data, these are in fact the majority of the types of calls that the police department receives. Yes. But they are not the type of calls that the expensive police response should be used for, all right? As Tyler mentioned, that's where the extra money comes in, is that it's a lot more expensive to send a police officer to a response like that than it is to send a team of a medic and a behavioral health specialist, okay? And likewise, when you have police officers, as Tyler was mentioning, they get tired and the overtime pay is very expensive. So when you have police officers regularly responding to calls they don't need to be at, that's more work for them, right? That's more calls. That's more demand on their already tight schedule with a few number of officers to do the calls that they should be doing. So these are the kinds of calls that alternative response teams tend to get. Now what we hear a lot is it safe? Is it safe for alternative response teams? And what we find out is that they will call backup. These are trained professionals. You know, we all know mental health professionals who are trained in de-escalation. They do that in their everyday job, in their offices, in their schools, you know, wherever they're working. So these are trained professionals. When they see a problem, they call backup. We just don't start with backup. We use it as a second opportunity, okay? And so Tyler did a really nice job of sharing what alternative response is not, which it's not a co-responder model. Right now, KPD has this co-responder model where they send a behavioral health specialist with the police officer. First of all, social worker, thank you, Cameron. That undermines the profession of social work, so I can't tell you how many social workers don't like this because that automatically links the profession as a whole with the carceral system, which they can't stand. But it also puts the community in jeopardy. Now my companion, Brittany, is going to talk about our journey with HEART.
So we're really happy to be here tonight because for the last 3 years we've been quietly told no by the city. So we thought we would take y'all on a journey of what our advocacy has looked like for the past 3 years. So HEART was created in July of 2020, where we spent most of those earlier months consulting with Cahoots of Eugene, Oregon, a 25-year-old model that we hope to model Knoxville's program after. And it was later in 2020 that the city first became aware of HEART. The then park director, LaKenya Middlebrook, and Charles Lomax of the Public Safety Office met with HEART representatives in early 2021. At this meeting, HEART introduced the ART model, Alternative Response Team model, and first advocated for its implementation in Knoxville. The results of that meeting were we were sent a mock proposal and told that to draft our proposal after that. So the following week, we were lucky enough to consult with another newer model, Denver Star, representatives who provided a wealth of knowledge and encouragement to our team. They even offered to facilitate a meeting with the then Chief of Police, Eve Thomas, and their Chief of Police in an effort for them to share with her the benefits of their program and outcomes of what has helped in their department in Denver. In the spring of 2021, HEART began advocating through public forums at city council meetings. We would like to think that this public advocacy at those city council meetings led to what was supposed to be a workshop on alternative response, but it came to just be a model that reinforced and advocated for the co-responder model, with no true intention given to alternative response. It was also during this time that American Cannon had announced, because previously it had been a pilot program, which is all we're asking for first. But it was during this time that they expanded the co-responder model. We would like to mention that we've asked American Cannon to meet with us a number of times, and not once has she accepted, but she has pawned us off to Aaron Gill. We're trying to be polite. And so another entity who was just closed off to even hearing about the alternative response model is the Knoxville Fire Department. They expressed zero interest in wanting to hear more about the alternative responder model and just reaffirmed that they believe in the co-responder model that was happening. So with no with no next steps from the city, we decided to focus our effort on sharing the model with the Knoxville community through neighborhood association and other community entities. These meetings, I'm looking at you, Nikki. These meetings are held nearly bi-weekly from late 2021 to summer of 2022. And I want to pause to say the boots on the ground between Moira and I during that time was vast. And we've still not reaped the, any acknowledgement from the city. But these meetings, now I lost my place. So Hart was able to meet with and garner the support of over 15 neighborhood community groups and community associations. Hart followed up these meetings with a de-escalation training for free to the community. The attendees, the de-escalation training just received an overwhelmingly positive response in its usefulness and edification to business owners and community members alike. A turning point and virtually the only encouragement that we've received is from, I'm not gonna go off, but I'm frustrated. A turning point, and virtually the only encouragement that we've received from the city was in late 2022 when we met with now Park Director Tiffany Davidson and Marcus Rudolph of her department, who not only listened thoughtfully but asked questions that displayed her own research into Hart and helped us to facilitate a meeting with Chief Noel, who also supports the concept of alternative response. And so where we are now in early 2023, after the transitions in Park, the transitions in KPD, the transitions in the mayor's office, Hart reattempted to engage the city, in which we met again with Aaron Gill, again with LaKenya Middlebrook, and the results of that meeting was just, they told us if we find funding and a partner, then they could have another conversation with us after that.
Wow.
So Moira's gonna cap us up with what our next steps are as a result of the city just not more of the same from the city for the past 3 years.
So we're going to get back with our team, but it's kind of looking like we may have to start our own nonprofit and then get the city to contract with us. That's risky because you don't know what's coming down the road politically, but that may be the way to go. So we're gonna continue to reach out to community partners. There does not seem to be anyone in town that's real interested in taking this on, so we may just need to build it. And the other thing I want to say is that last night at City Council, I represented our group there, and we did have a policy ask for the city that was then declined by Aaron Gill afterwards, which is we asked that in any reformation, as Lady was talking about, of the community empowerment and the public safety office, that they be mandated with helping to facilitate the creation of an alternative response team. And Aaron declined to even ask that. We're not even talking about money. We're talking about research into ongoing communication with us, but a direct mandate from the city to move forward on that, and that's not going to happen.
And we would be remiss in not mentioning that the city fully funded the co-responder model.
Yep, they did.
With an already partner, so it was seamless for them to pilot that program. But with us, we're getting find your own partner, find your own funding.
And the city renewed that program without having an annual report for their trials.
Say it, Tyler, say it.
Yeah. I love art, vote for me.
Thank you, Maura and Brittany, for that. I definitely am a result of the system that they have in place and actually before. I'm not ashamed to say that I am a mental health diagnosed individual. And every time I had to call 911, go to the ER, and then get picked up in a paddy wagon just to go to the mental health hospital. Just this was maybe a couple of years ago with this model. If this model had been in place, we have 2 young kids who would have not lost their mother. Constance and I went to a situation. Police had to be called because the state of Tennessee says in order for you to get mental health help, you must go through the ER. You know who has to take you to the ER?
Police.
Now, luckily, sometimes people will go on their own, but in order to leave the ER, you have to be shackled.
Yep.
This happened to a woman
Burn children.
And it was so traumatic that less than 2 weeks later, she killed herself.
Supposedly.
So now, we're dealing with these type of situations that if we can get the support that you all need, these type of incidents would not happen. If we get hard funding and we get it in place, people do not have to die. Because there are so many people who have diagnosis who will not call 911. I have made it very clear, I will never call 911 again.
That's right.
For a mental health crisis. Which means that I don't get help in a crisis, because the hospital will turn you away if you show up there without going through the ER and police bringing you there. So thank you for your tireless work and to keep on going, and I'm sure that one day you're going to get the funding that we need. Next on, honey, yes, I'm gonna pass the collection plate. If y'all got some money out there, I'm gonna need for y'all to give it to me.
Lady, your video ended on your live feed. I'm getting messages.
It's saying I'm still here now. 4. All right. Community-based violence response. Next will be Rick Hild. He is a former social studies school teacher in Knox County, and then he was over a decade the director of community engagement for SEED. And currently Rick is the project development coordinator for Job Squad, a project of the Knoxville Center Labor Council to bring more inner city youth people into skilled trades and apprenticeships for good paying union jobs. So we've got Rick, who will now speak on what I just said.
What she said. Actually, what I'm going to speak on is, let's see, I've got it written right here. I'm going to speak on community-led and community-driven violence intervention and prevention in Knoxville. I'm going to talk about it in terms of the brief history of this and the present picture. Before I jump into that, I do want to give a plug for the hat I'm wearing these days. I am the project development director for Job Squad, project of the Knoxville Oak Ridge Central Labor Council, and we're doing outreach to get inner city young people, first of all, for them to understand what the heck a union is, because most of these folks don't even know, and I know this firsthand from teaching folks at Austin East. But second of all, not only to get them to know what a union is, but to let them understand our opportunities right now to get some of these folks in apprenticeships and good paying union jobs at Oak Ridge. So over at the Sockham table, Lilith is holding up flyers with that information for the East Tennessee Apprenticeship Program. Excuse me. And my other handout is on this wall. I've got statistics. I'm a data nerd when it comes to gun violence. So there's a 2-pager over there against this wall, and I'll be referring to some of that. So help yourselves. So I'm going to talk about the kind of the brief history since 2020, and then we'll talk about what's the situation today. 2020, a lot of folks in this room remember the story of gun violence, especially late 2020, early 21. We were looking at a record number of gun murders. By the end of 20, we had 37 gun murders at the same time. So that was a record number. What was also a record number in 2020 was a record police budget, which at the time was $57 million for Knoxville Police Department. And for 2021, the proposed budget was to bump that up a little bit higher. Well, just a little bit above 60 million just for police. Wow. So while the police budget was going up, so were gun murders. So clearly we weren't getting bang for our buck in terms of violence intervention and prevention from law enforcement. So what was also happening at this time is
as these murders were going up, these gun murders were going up, we were getting a lack of coordination between stakeholders, right? Who are we talking about? There's obviously the police department has an interest in gun violence, but also obviously now the school system does, as well as the justice system. It's all very well connected, very tightly connected, right? And there are plenty of nonprofits out there in the community living hand to mouth who are also dealing on a day-to-day basis and losing people and their families. So there was no kind of, there were a lot of silos out there, let's just put it that way. And to the extent that nonprofits were working on various ways to address gun violence, there wasn't a lot in the way of money and a lot in the way of resources to do their work. And what little money there was out there was given out in grants, small grants, on a competitive basis. So these nonprofits are competing for money instead of collaborating. So nobody's on the same page. So by the end of 2020, my partner, Seema Singh, obviously Councilwoman Seema Singh, who has been in the domestic violence prevention space with her nonprofit for many years. Her program is part of an entity called the Family Justice Center. And within the Family Justice Center, you've got the police. 1 minute already? I know. Oh my God. Wow, I've got to really fast forward here. Wow. That was a time one. All right, so I guess the key takeaway here is we proposed, and we still think it's a sound proposal, to look at what the size of the police budget is, and then to propose 10% of that budget be addressed in a collaborative way, not by defunding the police, but in addition to what the police budget is, 10% of that budget just to do non-law enforcement violence intervention and prevention approaches. Where we stand with this today, I'm going to do one thing that'll get me probably just a little bit over on this. Being a community organizer, I have to have at least one aspect of my presentation to be at least semi-participatory. Okay? What you're seeing up here is a relatively new entity that the city of Knoxville has established to do violence intervention and prevention. This is where the money, and this is where the money and this is where the power is in terms of decisions that get made, in terms of where the resources are in violence intervention and prevention in town right here, right now. So what we have, this group meets on a monthly basis, I think just starting this year. Here are the committee members. Mayor Kincannon was the chair of the committee. KPD Chief Nola is on the committee. Jason Perrode, the security chief for Knox County Schools. Eric Ludden, the director of the Public Defender's Office. Leanne, don't know if her last name starts with an H, part of the co-responder CIT program out of McNabb, the mental health nonprofit. Randy Nichols, representing the Knox County Sheriff's Department. Chris Martin, representing the largest Christian nonprofit in town, of course, the Knoxville Leadership Foundation. Charles Lomax, the executive director of the Urban League. Terry Smith, yay, she's got a seat over here on this committee. Reverend Bass from the pastor of Mount Olive Church, representing Justice Knox, the interfaith organization. And Denzel Grant, who is here, I meant to acknowledge, I'm on the board of Turn Up Knox, and they are, I've got a fellow board member here, Caesar Stair, and I've got two of our staff here, Lydia and Denzel Grant, the director here. They will be somebody else. And Terry. making themselves available for questions afterwards. So looking at that list, is this what you would call a community-based, community-led, and community-driven violence intervention entity?
Nope.
No? Why not?
First off, Indy Buchanan, Chief Pope, no one else problematic from the get-go. Off real.
She shouldn't be the chair.
She shouldn't be the chair at all.
Quickly, just throw some names at me. Who would you nominate? Who else would you nominate to be on this committee? This is where the decisions get made.
Brother Moja. Z.
Brother Emoja?
Yes. Miss Talani.
Miss Rue, Anthony
How
Thompson
do you
Jr.'s
spell
mother.
Talani? Did you say Talani?
Taloni.
Amani Shula.
Ruth Bailey. Don Robinson.
Yes, Miss Don Robinson.
Did you say Don?
Robinson.
Yeah, Anthony's
That's
mom.
Anthony's mama.
Okay.
Miss Jackie Holloway.
Yeah, Jackie Holloway.
Sorry, Robinson or Robertson?
Robinson.
Jackie Robinson. I'm sorry, Jackie. Don Robinson.
Anthony Thompson Jr. 's
Jackie
mom.
Holloway.
Yes, it
Jackie
is.
Holloway. Canvas
More
can
than
do
that.
miracles.
It's more than that.
I'm Felicia Utsi.
Felicia Utsi. These are the folks.
What's Jamaica's mama's name? Niecy
North.
Niecy North.
And I.
Her daughter was killed.
Niecy and I what?
Salithia North.
North? Okay.
Miss Sky, Niecy Sky. She's a teacher at Austin East.
Okay, you get the idea.
Right,
Yeah, I got more
mostly,
names than that.
more folks to be added who have direct
These are
experience.
folks who have a personal
Yeah.
story having to do with violence intervention and prevention. These are the community assets. Let's give them their due. There's assets here, right? It may not be all the assets that we need, but these are the real assets here. They're the ones who have the personal life experience with this, right? They need to be at this table.
They need to
Right.
be the chair.
Chair.
And you need a new chair. Duly noted. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I can see that the air done went off. I think they was trying to get us to
Freezing.
your freezers to make us don't get done, right? Our next topic is going to be incarceration. But as I read that, what I'm going to ask is we're going to have question and answer. So if you know that you want to ask a question, I ask that you guys will go on and start making your line over here. We do not have with us today Miss Imani Shula because she's sick. However, she sent in what she wanted to say, and I'm going to read it. And that goes to show who she is, a woman of her word, a woman of action, and she does not let her illness stop her from doing the commitment that she made. Ms. Imani Schuler is the Director of Community Defense of East Tennessee, CDET, and she is also the National Participatory Defense Network trainer and organizer on staff at DBUG of Silicon Valley, a nationwide community organizing model. Through her local and national connectives, Imani encourages and empowers individuals facing criminal charges. And please look her up because she just finished a documentary that is outstanding. And it's because of her work. The word is getting out, especially about the injustices of Tennessee, who gives a life sentence to children. And so we have to stop that. I've seen several times a denial of the city when it comes to the impact it has on incarceration by making statements that suggest the DA's office is responsible for incarceration. When people lack access to the essential resources such as quality education, stable employment, adequate housing, health care, and social support systems, they face numerous challenges that can significantly increase their incarceration likelihood. The scarcity of these resources creates an environment where individuals may resort to desperate attempts to meet their basic needs or navigate difficult circumstances. Limited access to education is a critical factor. Without equality and equitable schooling, individuals may lack the skills and knowledge necessary for grateful employment or alternative pathways to success. Additionally, disparities in discipline lead to the school-to-prison pipeline. The lack of opportunities can lead to unemployment or underemployment, leaving generations in a cycle of poverty. Inadequate housing options, especially in marginalized communities, can perpetuate poverty, crime, and incarceration cycles. This will contribute to the destabilization of a family unit and the community as a whole. Many individuals without access to proper health care are more likely to face untreated mental health issues, substance abuse problems, or chronic conditions. These underlying challenges can increase risk and make individuals vulnerable to incarceration. The lack of strong social support networks can also leave people isolated and give guidance during challenging times. And without guidance during challenging times, individuals may struggle to navigate difficult circumstances without supportive relationships, mentors, and trusted community leaders. To address the issues of incarceration, it is essential to recognize the systemic barriers and inequalities that deprive individuals of resources. By the city and county mayors and governing bodies implementing policies that promote inequitable access to education, employment opportunities, affordable housing, health care, and supportive social networks, we can reduce incarceration, disproportionate impact on marginalized communities, and foster a more just and inclusive society. And this was submitted by Ms. Imani Shula. And now it's time for you all. And does anybody have any questions that you all want answered at the People's City State Address on tonight?
Yeah, Brianna, what's your cash out?
How can we support you, Brianna?
For real, what's your cash out?
My cash app is Brianna H, BREYAUNAH. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who has donated to me, going back to when that break came out and I came public with my story about being homeless. And I want to thank everybody that will give, because this situation is beyond expensive. Like I said, we've had to eat out meals for over 100 days because I haven't been able to cook. We've stayed in, I think, 4 different hotels since January 17th. So my children go to Maynard Elementary School, my elementary school age kids, and then my high schoolers go to Austin East. So I'm literally traveling from like the 4 corners of Knox County. We've stayed all over Knox County, except in South Knoxville. So I'm using enormous amounts of gas, just going back and forth in the morning and the afternoon to get my elementary schoolers to and from school from whatever hotel we happen to be staying in at the time. On top of going back and forth, searching for housing, and advocating for myself and the extracurricular activities that my kids are doing. I can't keep it up by myself. That's why I've slept in my heart. It's just too much.
Can you please spell your Cash App for us again? Oh, you did? Okay, I've already said it. I got hold on it. Okay. But can you say it out loud again for people who are listening?
It's BREYAUNAH. So basically my first name and the first initial of my last name.
Donate, 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 donate.
Anybody with any questions?
Looks like we have a question over here.
Okay.
I have a question for Brianna, and which is really not a question because I know she knows about it, but maybe the other people don't. We were kind of linking the chain of racism to all these different subjects and whatever ism and schism we're dealing with, because we're dealing with a lot of them. But I see the systemic racism flowing through all these different issues, and especially the housing issue, because now in Knoxville the rent has gone up, so I'm sure you're having a hard time looking for a place because the raggedy little $700 houses are now $1,400 and $1,200. If you see a $900 place, it is a roommate situation, not a situation you can take children to, or a shared bathroom situation, which is not a situation you can take more than one child to. And the state of Tennessee last year made it illegal to sleep in your car. What? Because they are targeting working class people. They're targeting people that are trying to get around the systemic classism and racism that is in the housing. This housing situation happened when my father got out of World War II and they created the suburbs. The real estate people support the racism by the systems that they make. So the applications are saying, and we don't accept vouchers. So not only do they check all your records and check your situations with the police, they put you in the situation that you get into with the police. They create that, they give you a voucher, then the system of real estate makes vouchers unacceptable. Well, we just don't want to rent to people who have vouchers. We don't care if it's regular money every week. We're going to isolate that 47% and try to get them out of Knoxville. And so the state, we need local and statewide representatives that stand together against all these injustices, because it's built into the system for them to tell you to go do something that you're already in the process of working on. Right. And they already know that that's the only thing they're going to say. That's right. Once they make an appointment or have a meeting with you. And they already know that they're being rude by refusing to have an appointment with you. And so we have to continue to do this. And we have to continue to find ways to band together and take a stand and elect politicians in numbers that do what the people on the state level about the gun violence. They stood together and faced the state of Tennessee and got that one thing done. But we have to do that 100 times, no matter how tired we are. Because when I came in the door, I said, oh, I just signed a paper for another organization. But we don't have a choice.
Well, to address your statement, I absolutely do think race and socioeconomic status play a factor in the Knox County workers ignore my pleas for assistance, ignore my requests for public documents pertaining to my case with the COVID money. They would not help me until I was already out of the house. I've got this documented in emails where they're just literally telling me once that money left their hands, they had no control over what the landlords did with it, which when I sat down and did my research, that was an absolute lie. they were required by federal law to make sure that that money was not being fraudulently used or misappropriated. And they had the documents and had spoken with me several times to know that this is what my landlord was doing. And that's the same situation with legal aid. They allowed this to happen. I feel like I was looked at like I was not worthy of help because I am poor, I'm black, and I have a bunch of kids. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I'm not, in certain people's eyes, I'm not worthy of the help. And related to what you said, like I was saying when I was giving my spiel up there, that people ask, well, have you applied here? Have you applied there? Absolutely. When my landlord hit me with that first illegal detainer warrant, I started applying at places that I thought I would never have to return to. I'm 38 years old. I shouldn't be on a voucher. Not with the education and the work experience and real life experience that I have. I shouldn't be applying to live in Walter P., Western Heights, and Lonsdale. But there are, KCDC told me there were over 4,000 people that are on the waiting list to get into these projects. And the waiting list has grown exponentially so much over the past year that guess what? KCDC has now closed the application list to the project. So you cannot even apply to get into the projects anymore because there's so many people waiting. There were over 9,000 people waiting on a Section 8 voucher the last time that I checked with KCDC, which was not that long ago. Austin Homes, I don't know why they're taking so long to finish. I applied to get into Austin Homes almost a year and a half ago. I have not heard a word. There were 1,000 people on the waiting list in front of me when I applied in January of last year. And when I checked with them in October of 2022, there were 2,000 people behind me. There is nowhere to go. And as I said, those apartments on Asheville Highway, they've had my application for over a month and haven't touched it. There are only 88 units in that particular complex, the Amazon Asheville Highway. And I was told 2 weeks ago there are approximately 105 people on the waiting list already. And they haven't even gotten to my application. There is a serious problem. KCDC has empty units, duplexes down here on University Avenue. I've been watching as I've been dealing with this housing crisis. Why have those duplexes been sitting empty for over a year with over 4,000 people waiting to get into KCDC properties? I've been told that KCDC is getting ready to sell those units. How did you all take that Title VI money? You came and tore the projects down, tore down the houses in the historically black neighborhood, and now that you milked it dry, now you want to sell it and leave everybody on the streets. That's unacceptable. And you're not rebuilding anything. All the black families that bought houses in the Mechanicsville Commons area, the majority of those people lost their houses to foreclosure over 10 years ago.
That's right. That's right.
Developers came in, bought the houses up cheap, including the one that I was just put out of. Same thing happened. Black woman lost her home to foreclosure. It changed hands once or twice, sold for cheap. And now they're putting black families out and jacking up the rent. And another thing, when you're putting black families out of historically black neighborhoods, guess what happens to our black schools? Maynard is in danger of being shuttered because the population of that school is dwindling down to nothing. They're hovering just above 100 kids in a school that serves pre-K through 5th grade. I would hate to see that school because my great-grandmother attended that school. And now my children are there. We're being pushed out of our neighborhoods. And where are we going, to the street?
That's right.
But you know what? I'm going to continue to sleep in my car if I have to. So, hey, If y'all see me on the 24-hour race list, somebody come get me, because that's where I'll be. Just come home to get me. I ain't scared to go to jail, but don't leave me in there too long, okay?
It looks like we've got a question waiting over here, but I wanted to touch on something briefly that that she brought up, just to color, to add to that, that you were saying that racism is occurring. Of all the things we're talking about here, I won't stand up so you can see me. But if you look at the every quarter, the KPD office publishes their bias-based policing report, which shows the breakdown by race of people who were arrested or suspected of crimes in the past quarter, and it is always disproportionately black folks who are arrested. And even more striking to me is that the disproportionality of suspects is even higher. So when you look at those numbers, just looking at the numbers, it looks like our police department is more ready to suspect an innocent black person than to suspect a guilty white person. And that's right there in the numbers, and it's consistent every month. And I wanted to also touch on, you said, the criminalization of sleeping in cars, and the state passed a bill last year, year before, to criminalize camping on any kind of state or local property. And our chief of police, new chief of police, Noel, said that they would not enforce that, and I have multiple videos of KPD officers threatening homeless people to be arrested under that law. So I just wanted to say race is absolutely occurring in all these things, and the continuing criminalization of impoverished and suffering people feeding into that carceral system, these things really are all tied together. And I think we had a question over here, if you still want to ask it.
It's just a quick question. I know on Tuesday night at the city council meeting, finance director said we should expect 29 million in unassigned funds. That's essentially our savings account for the city that can be moved into the budget. So since we got that 29 million there, I wanted to ask Hart, what would the proposal look like for a pilot program for Hart to begin in the city?
Oh man, we just upped our proposal, so I feel very much on the spot. What I will say is, Denver Star started their program with a portion of a $200,000 grant that came from a state representative who advocated for them.
200,000?
Less than 200,000.
Less than 200,000.
It was shared amongst a number of entities that came out. Like Hart has proven to be a more cost-effective model than sending a police officer out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, I had a question. I was wondering, what could we do in the city of Knoxville to, work for building a more affordable housing? Because I know you're talking about this issue where you had over 4,000 people applying for affordable housing in the city. And the problem is, I see this issue where I live near the university. They're building new massive apartment buildings, big 5-over-1s right now, but none of that's going to be affordable housing because it's really hard to get financing for affordable housing because, the banks don't want to give you money because you don't make money off of it. So I guess I'm just at kind of a loss. What can we do to really advocate for more affordable housing? Because we have a genuine crisis on our hands. I've known people whose rent doubled. It's ridiculous.
I will address that. I've been fighting housing for, I think I really started in 2016. Going to all these fluff housing meetings. That was when I first met India. At these housing advocacy meetings where they were in the meetings, there were developers. Is my brother from another mother still back there, Adam from Sockham? If he's gone. We spoke with Ben Bentley. Elizabeth was in that meeting. We spoke with Ben Bentley the summer of 2016. And one of the things that we told him, because what they were doing in public housing was charging market rate. Market rate. But the problem is, there's not a structure in our city government where KCDC can be held accountable. In my research and reaching out to the city, there is no checks and balances whatsoever when it comes to those vouchers and how they charge rent. So you know what what we're gonna have to do? What Brother Zimbabwe said. We're gonna have to show up, and we're gonna have to demand these things, because the casual, nice conversations are getting us nowhere. Now, I will say this. I had the pleasure of yesterday meeting with Aaron Reed. I don't know how much hope I do have in this, but our mayor, in her speech last week, she spoke about a new department. And this is going to be called the Knoxville and the Knox County Office of Housing Sustainability. And the director is Aaron Reed. And in my meeting, what I was told is that this department, even though it's funded by Knox County and the city of Knoxville, she is not working up under either one of them. So that gave me a little hope, but I was like, how is that really gonna work?
That's where paycheck comes from.
Okay?
I've been doing that with everything.
So again, they're gonna fund her office, but how much power is she really gonna have to hold Knox County to the fire, the city of Knoxville to the fire, to hold KCDC to the fire? One of the things that we did talk about, though, is the fact that our PBA, which is a public housing authority, is a corporation. See, only when we show up at meetings and start talking about this openly on record, about how it is a conflict of interest for our public housing authority to be a corporation who deals in development. So your public housing authority here in Knoxville, Tennessee is not in the business of affordable housing.
That's right. That's right.
Let me say that again, especially for all of you uppity ones out there who think that people living in public housing or getting vouchers are no good and can do better. What you need to be screaming is that our public housing authority, who takes your taxes and not use them properly.
That's right. Misappropriation. Scam.
Knox County and the city of Knoxville should put KCDC to the fire. Did you guys know that there is a voucher program where poor people can buy houses under KCDC through their sustainability department? But you want to know who they don't tell about that program?
The poor people.
The poor people. So what they do is KCDC gets in cahoots with other developers, because even in her speech, she says that it's important for private development. No, it's not. KCDC, technically, because it's a corporation, should be the ones that's buying up these houses that are dilapidated, fixing them up, and then allowing the poor people who are residents of this city to be able to buy them with the very voucher program that is in place hidden within the PBA guidelines that KCDC is supposed to operate under. But again, that's not going to happen, which is why the second reading of the budget has officially been moved to May the 30th. Okay? But prior to that, 8 a.m. on May the 9th is the public hearing. 8 a.m. I know some of y'all supposed to be at work. This is what they do.
This is what they do, though.
This is what they do. The public hearing for each and every one of you all to speak out about the injustices that are perpetuated through a budget that doesn't fund the very programs that we need will be happening on May the 9th at 8 a.m. If you care about the injustices that are happening within this city, you need to take off, you need to do whatever you can do, and we need to show up in numbers in that city-county building for the public hearing. Because you want to know what they're used to?
Nobody
Being there. So my brother, when you ask the question, what can I do? What can we do? Show up.
That's right. That's right.
And speak out.
That's right.
Show up and speak out. Because this is nice for y'all to be here today. This nice. But it doesn't matter if you don't get your voice and your name on public record in that city-county building in numbers. So again, May the 9th at 8 a.m., which is the public hearing for what we are here tonight addressing, the 2023-24 budget. Also put on your calendars, the second reading of the budget has been moved to May the 30th at 6 p.m. in the city-county building.
Shout out to Amelia, she fought for that one.
Yes.
She fought for that.
So that gives them more time. Clap. That gives them more time to go over that 200+ page document so that we can get it right. But unfortunately, you guys, guess what? This mayor still has the power because of how our infrastructure is set up through the charter, that no matter what our councilmen and women say, that the way she wants the budget to go can go. But that's why we as the people need to stand up and we need to come out to these meetings. Also, I was informed that a body was found.
Yep, they just found it.
Today. Up under a bridge. They're not sure if it's from homelessness or houselessness, but here's what I think that we should do. We're going to give 10 seconds of silence for this individual who has lost their lives, the family members who may not know that their loved one is gone. And because of the state of our city that has conditions where people die up under bridges. So let us just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Next, we're going to have a call to action.
Hey, lady, can I to the last thing, that question?
Yes.
Just to end it up. Just to bring to light something, this paper that's right in front of us, right? The Violence Reduction Leadership Committee that Rick brought up. I think we should also understand that it's something that is the byproduct of a lot of our organizing, right? There would be that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a lot of the organizing actions and protests that have been going on. That doesn't represent what we want. It doesn't represent the end goal, right? But there is some wins represented within that. You know, overall, that is mostly status quo, right? But who do we have in that too, right? We do have Terry Smith in that space, right? Who's actually in that, who's there, right? We have Justice Knox, right? Justice Knox, they organized. Terry Smith was Mothers on the Move. You know, they organized. And we have Denzel Grant here, Turn Up Knox, who they organized, right? I think Ms. Terry, she said something about, in the unity. I think it's important to understand, like, we are trying to build broad unity, right? And when we have efforts like these, like when we see our work co-opted by the city, right? This is just another co-option, right? We're saying we want action done. So he's like, okay, we're gonna do some action, and this is like, it's not good, right? But for our people who do get in the door, right? For our people who do get the crumbs, right? For the people who are moving, we still gotta support them, right? So I wanted to ask Denzel to talk about Turn Up Knox and specifically tell us about some programs and why this is something that we should be aware of. This is something that we should be supportive, and because we want to make sure you and anybody else in the city want to make sure that, like, when you're in these spaces, right, you have our support and our backing, right, and we're making sure that things that's happening, that something needs to be done, not just the things that the administration needs to be done. So can you tell us about Turn Up Knox and the work y'all do?
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Z. I stayed just in case anybody did want to, offer questions. I think, Turn Up Knox, for most people in here know, Turn Up Knox is brand new, right? We've been incubated since July 1st. A lot of the challenges that we've kind of been facing, it's a new program. right? The city's never seen anything like it. The community never has seen anything like it, even though I can say that there's people that's been on the ground doing this work already. It may not be in a formal setting, but you do have people every day that are using the de-escalation tactics that they've learned over time to really stop and curb some of the violence that we're seeing. I think Turn Up Knox is just a name, right? As far as partnerships, obviously we received a huge grant from the city, which, you know, I've been able to hire 10 additional staff. I have 3 that do administrative work, and then we have 6 what we classify as interrupters, which are our street outreach workers. They spend every day just pretty much keeping an ear to the streets and some of the stuff that you have going on. The victim today, his name is actually Travis Lamont Brown. I got that notification at 3 o'clock. Very unfortunate situation regarding his circumstances. He was a father, you know what I mean? He had a daughter, and I can say that I knew that he was making attempts to kind of change his life. It's unfortunate what happened today, but it also, and not to minimize it, understanding that, you know, this woman said here, there's a lot of systematic things in place that we're fighting, right? And so, you know, the time and effort that was put in to get us here, it's going to take that same amount of time to get us out of it. And so that's the approach that I've had during this whole time. Fortunately, I've kind of put myself in a position to be at the table. I feel like we have to be at the table to know what's going on and to potentially try to change the trajectory of how things are going.
Because not just you, right? Like you, a leader in the protest movement, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, because honestly, without all the protests, all the things happening, are you in that space?
No.
Probably not, right?
It's been 3 years of advocating. It's been 3 years of fighting. I've cursed the mayor out publicly. And now I'm here. So, I mean, making those adjustments needed to get to where I'm at, whether you call it selling out, no matter what you call it, I realized that I had to make certain adjustments with how I approach my community in order to handle it, to put myself in this position to bring some real change to our community. And so, like I said, we're just a year in. Go ahead, Rick.
There were some statements made, and I hope you can clarify about Turn Up Knox's relationship to the police department.
Yeah. I think that comes with receiving city funding, right? I mean, I don't address rumors because it gives it life. In no form or fashion do we work with KPD. Like, I'm the last person that would have any type of partnership with law enforcement. Even though I have a law enforcement background, I've advocated publicly. I've advocated, to defund the police. Rick stated the 10%. To me, it's psychological, right? And I think that's an approach we can actually take. Like, listen, I don't want to take money from you. Can we just allocate 10% of what you guys have? Because we do have Turn Up Knox, we do have Safe Haven, we do have Love Is the Answer. You have all these other programs, boots on the ground, that can use the resources and funding that KPD isn't necessarily using. The fire department they don't need bulletproof vests. You know, we spent $1 million on stuff like that, $3 million on unmarked cars. Like, the city has it, right? So we just have to continue to advocate for these things and keep ourselves in these rooms so we can hear what's going on. And you make sure that you passing that information, and you bringing other people in the room with you so we can have real impactful change in our community.
Thank you, Denzel. Great, thank you. Rick, listen, no, wait a minute, because...
Important point that's coming up here.
Sir, will you please follow protocol for this event? We have ran over, no. Listen, after I have finished, will you, see, this is the problem, right? Listen. So the black woman is talking right now, hosting this event. Rick, will you please stop? Rick, will you please stop right now?
KPD chief.
Rick, I think he's made it very clear what Turn Up Knox is. Hold up, okay, will you guys please have decorum and please stop. Stop, please. He has made it clear, Rick, and you are out of order. It is my job to keep the order. Denzel, thank you very much for answering the question. However, I have a program that I must follow. And when we are in spaces like this, we must remember decorum, and we must remember that we have a program, because I still have someone else to bring up. I still have someone else to bring up, which is going to do the call to action. There was plenty of time for you guys to have question and answer, was it not? There was plenty of time for you all to have question and answer.
Yes.
And you chose not to, and I went on. So now I am going to honor this program. I am going to honor the people's time who is here. And I'm going to bring up my brother, who I love, who is one of my community babies, who I definitely cherish and honor, and I'm thankful for the work that he does. I am getting ready to bring up to the mic Hassan Atra. He is a proud, lifelong South Knoxvillian. He is a part of City Council movement, and he is the proud child of Palestinian refugees. So it is my brother's time to make a call to action.
Love you, lady. In times like these, as we face unprecedented challenges, loss, suicides, overdoses, houselessness, displacement, deaths by gun violence, our people deserve a budget that reflects the needs of our communities and that shows us that our elected leaders take our losses, our pain, our trauma, our lives, and our deaths seriously. Our demands are as follows. The decoupling of the Office of Community Empowerment and the Office of Community Safety and removing them out from under the administration. There are too many responsibilities for one department and too much absorbed by the administration, which has doubled its budget from $5 million to $10 million since 2020. The reason for this demand is that our council already has very limited power to make changes to the mayor's proposed budget. And the unilateral absorption of other departments by the administration further curtails our council's ability to bring forward changes uplifted by our community. Our council only has the power to propose that funds be transferred between departments. They have no power to make line item requests concerning how the departments use those funds. As it stands, we simply have to trust that our administration will act in good faith and be transparent with us. We would rather see democratic processes in place that don't force us to simply trust in an administration that has a deeply problematic track record in terms of following through with commitments and transparency. 2, funding for an alternative response team. Funding an alternative response team has for years been a priority of our community. After Ant was killed by KPD in his high school bathroom with no attempt to de-escalate, to talk to him, to listen to him, to love him, to call his mama, to support him, many of us asked if we would have to wait and witness another preventable tragedy before our city was willing to act. With the preventable death of Lisa Edwards, we have now experienced the loss many of us warned our city about. At the hands of KPD, we have yet again lost someone who would still be with us had an alternative response team existed and responded with love and compassion to Lisa Edwards' pleas for help before she was taken from her family and her community. Not only would funding an alternative response team prevent unnecessary death and minimize at-risk communities' interactions with the legal system, but it would also guarantee that KPD is not forced to engage with people who just need support, and that they acknowledge they are not trained or equipped to deal with and support. There is no question that an alternative response team should be funded in this year's budget. 3, more funding for affordable housing. Massive amounts of people are being displaced from the communities we grew up in because housing costs have increased by more than 50% since pre-pandemic. We are being priced out of our communities, and people trying to start a life here are not able to find housing at all. Many from our community are experiencing houselessness, like our sister Brianna, because of being priced out. This is an emergency and ought to be treated as such. 4, more funding for houseless folks. As we experience a housing crisis, a pandemic, inflation, desperation, many more families are experiencing houselessness and are forced onto the streets as they are priced out of their communities. Our city has an abysmal track record in terms of how houseless folks are treated. Houseless people deserve bodily autonomy too, and forcibly displacing the poorest and most neglected members of our community is an appalling injustice that has shocked many of us these past years. Rather than rounding up and displacing our city's most vulnerable members, a majority of whom suffer from severe mental illness, substance abuse disorder, and chronic poverty, we must invest in supporting our houseless community and ensuring that poverty does not continue to be a death sentence to folks who have been long abandoned by our state and local leaders. One small note is that 1 out of every 3 houseless men in this country is a veteran. This is appalling and unacceptable. 5, more funding to groups on the ground already working with the most vulnerable youth and people in our city. As our city has reeled from the death of so many black youth these past few years, and so many people to gun violence, we should be funding groups on the ground working with the most at-risk communities. As most know, Black-led organizations like Miss Jackie Holloway's Canvas Can Do Miracles, Felicia Utsi's Love is the Answer Community Showcase, Minark, Community Defense, and so many others commit their lives to working with those closest to the pain. They already do the work with the most at-risk youth and empower them to pursue their passions and dreams through art, music, dance, community, food, love. They are organizations run by people who themselves live with the same hardships and the trauma of the little ones they fight every day for. We see groups like these excluded from funds available in our city when they should be among our city's biggest priorities. Our people and groups like these deserve better and deserve funds that would increase the capacities to uplift hundreds more of the most at-risk children and people in our city. Funding community-led violence interruption work is necessary and an important piece of building a Knoxville that truly is for all of us. But we do need far, far more. To our elected leaders, if it were your babies, your elders, your families, your mothers who were preventably killed, lost, forced into houselessness, how far would you go to make sure the policies and programs were put in place that prevented such loss from ever happening again? We ask that you act with courage and strength and invest in our people as if they were your people dying, as if they were your little ones, because these are our people dying and their deaths are preventable. When there exists the political will in our elected leaders to fight for us as if we were your own, to fight for houseless folks like they were your own loved ones, to fight for black children as if they were your own, anything is possible. We are the people of Knoxville and we deserve to be valued, loved, protected, and funded. We deserve to live and to live with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Now that's a way to close out the People's State Address. of the city. I encourage each and every one of you all to take note of the dates that I have let you know about. We need to show up, show out on March the 9th at 8 a.m. And also remember the second reading of the budget on May the 30th at 6 p.m. Both of those are going to be at the City County building. I ask that you guys give yourselves a round of applause on tonight. People's voices have been heard, and so City of Knoxville, I hope that you are listening. Thank you, God bless, and you guys have a great evening.